And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
I'm talking about Cities and Knights of Catan. And if you haven't seen my review of the Settlers of Knights of Catan, or if you haven't played this game, then you need to check this out first because the Cities and Knights of Catan is an expansion for it. Now, the Cities and Knights of Catan, if you thought Settlers of Catan was kind of a namby-pamby game, kind of a little too simple, too easy, well, this is what you want then. This adds a ton to the original game. You thought the original didn't have enough options? You have options galore here. Let's look at what comes in the box. As you can see, this looks like the regular board for Settlers of Catan with, well, here we see this barbarian ship down here in the corner. We'll talk about that in a minute. But also, players get to start with one city. They start with one settlement in one city rather than two settlements as the original game. In fact, cities are much more important in this game, hence their mention in the title, because cities can now produce one of three new resources. We have the coins here, we have paper, and we have textiles. These three are produced only by cities and as their second resource. Cities produce two resources when their die is rolled. The second one is one of these special resources. So, for example, if this white city back here, if a 4 is rolled and it's next to the prairie here, a player will get one wool, but they'll also get one textile. What good are these three extra resources? Why do we need 8 different resources? No longer do we need these boring building cost cards with only 4 things on. Those are gone, and instead we have a little flip chart that each player has. Now this flip chart will show you what players can build in 3 different categories. For example, in the building and trade category, you can still build road and settlements like you could in the original game, but you could also build ships. Now you can only do this if you're combining this expansion with the Seafarers of Catan, because that's where ships come from, but it mentions them in case you're playing with both expansions. Under building and politics, you can build your cities like normal, but you can also now build a city wall for 2 bricks. A city wall, which looks like this, is placed under a city. And what it does is, normally when the robber attacks, if you have 7 or more cards, then you basically lose half of your cards. But each city wall that you have, and you can only have 1 per city and only 3 maximum, adds 2 to that number. So if I have all 3 city walls, I can hold 12 cards in my hand and not worry about anything. So that's building and politics. Over here is a buildings and science. And this allows me to build knights and to promote knights and to activate knights. Now, knights come with the game and they're round tokens, each with an active side and an inactive side. They have different rings around to show how powerful that knight is, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But you can also see on each one of these flip charts, at the bottom, it shows a building you can build for one of those special resources that we mentioned earlier. The market, the town hall, and the abbey. So let's say, for example, I use one of my cloth to build the market. I then flip this flip chart over, and it shows me to build the next building. I need to build a trading house. Now, that's useful for a couple of reasons. One, the farther I get these, this suddenly lets me use this special event die. Special event die? All right, more stuff that's being added to the game. When you roll your dice at the beginning of each turn, you roll these. If you roll the barbarian ship on this special event die, then the barbarian ship moves 1 on his track, coming closer to destroy everyone and everything. If you roll, however, one of these colors, let's say I roll yellow, we then will look at the red die. So, for example, I built the market here, and you can see that whenever the yellow is rolled plus a 1 or a 2 on the red die, I then get a card. What? More things? Why, yes. It just seems to get more and more. No longer do we need the development cards. They're gone. Instead, we have 3 decks of cards. Each of these decks corresponds with one of those parts of the flip chart. And so the more buildings you build in the flip chart, the better a chance you have at getting these cards. Some of them do the same things as the development cards do, but there's a lot more interactive cards in the mix, a lot more things going on, and you can draw many of these throughout the course of a game. When a player is building on these flip charts, and they built the fourth section of one of these three parts of the flip book. They now, if they're the first person to do so, they can build a metropolis. A metropolis is built on top of a city, like this, and that city is worth 4 points. Very valuable during the course of a game. It's also immune to the barbarians when they attack. And so 3 of these can be built over the course of a game, 1 for each part of the flip book. I mentioned that over the course of a game, you can build knights. When you build a knight, you take a level 1 knight, you pay the resources for him, and you put him down on the board, but he's unactivated. He's worthless to you unless you pay a grain to activate him. Speaking of which, grain becomes super valuable in this game because it seems like you're always needing it to activate these knights, because every time you use them for anything, you have to deactivate them and then pay grain to reactivate them. You can upgrade the knight to a higher level by paying the necessary resources to upgrade him, and they can be upgraded to level 3. Knights can do several different things, which we won't go into detail, but basically they can chase other players' knights away. You can displace the robber, get him off an area by using your knight, and most importantly, and they can help defend when the barbarians attack. As the game progresses, that special die is going to keep those barbarians moving, and they're going to be attacking Catan at certain points during the course of the game. When that happens, the strength of the barbarians is equal to the number of cities and or metropolises that are currently on the board. Each player then will have to fight them off with their knights. Now, only active knights are going to be able to fight them off, and each knight has a value worth the level that it is. So some knights are stronger than others. If the humans win, then the person who has the most knights that they use is going to get the Defender of Catan card, worth a victory point. Everyone cheers. But if you lose, then the player who sent forth the least amount of knights is going to have one of their cities reduced to a settlement. And this can be very devastating. In fact, I found it kind of annoying as the game went by how these barbarians just keep attacking and attacking and attacking, and it kind of gives you this feeling of hopelessness at certain points in the game. I like Cities and Knights. I think it's a good expansion to the game, but first of all, it's very complicated. No, I mean, not super complicated, but it adds a lot of different things. As I'm going and looking at my flip book, now I don't have just a few things I can build. I can have up to 7 or 8, 9, 10 different things I can build. And so I'm constantly looking around. Trading takes longer, and you're trying to figure out what to do. Secondly, some people are not going to like this constant invasion of the barbarians. And even for me, that was kind of a drag. I don't mind the fact that the barbarians are going to attack and we need to get ready to fight them, but it just seemed like it happened an awful lot, and I was constantly sitting there trying to make sure my knights were prepared for invasion. That's a game in and of itself. It doesn't seem like it fits in the Settlers of Catan world. Thirdly, it's long. Really long. This takes Settlers of Catan, which can be done in 45 minutes, and turns it into a 2-hour game. And woe betide you if you try to play with more than 4 players. I think it's a neat thing. I really like the options, and there are some people who think that this is the best way to play Settlers of Catan. They think that this is the only way to play with strategy. And if you've given up on Settlers because you thought it was kind of too low of a level game, then you might like this. You might like the little bit of interaction with the knights chasing each other out. You might like the fact that the barbarians are coming and it gives you that gut feeling, and that you can build all kinds of different things with all new pieces, building cities and city walls. There's even a piece for a merchant which players can use moving around the board if you get the right card. And so, what do you think? Is Settlers of Catan so much fun for you because it's simple, fun, and trading? Or did you think it's kind of weak and needs a whole lot more options along with a greater depth of strategy? If you think this latter, then you should get this expansion. If you're happy with the simplicity of Settlers of Catan, then you might want to avoid this one and get Seafarers instead.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.